Medurstand, Understanding Medicine.
I'm Professor Aziz-ur-Rehman, and in our series of videos on ECG, we are going to take up the next module. And the next module is about conduction system. We are going to start with various types of abnormalities related to conduction. So today, I'll just give you an introduction to what conduction system is. This is our curriculum. We have done these 8 videos, and today we're going to take up this one. Conduction system. Now, this is the picture, and you can imagine that out of heart, just the conduction system has been isolated, and the rest of the heart, like myocardium, the coronaries, the valves, and everything else is removed, just to make the picture clear. Now, first of all, this is the conduction system. These are not nerves. These are specialized myocytes. Originally, they are just muscle cells, but they have developed this skill of conducting the current. First of all, producing the current and then conducting it and then sometime holding it. These special characteristics they have developed and they have specialized in conduction. They perhaps cannot contract, but they have this ability. Now, the second thing is every possible part of this conduction system is a potential pacemaker. They have the inherent ability to produce a current, but mostly they are kept suppressed by the SA node because the natural law is the part of the conduction system which has the fastest inherent rate that will rule the heart. In a normal person, it is SA node which has the fastest inherent heart rate. So normally it is SA node which governs the heart. But in case it fails, then the next AV node will take over. And if that also fails, then some other part will take over. We will discuss this in various arrhythmias. But here just the basic introduction of the conduction system. This one is SA node, sinoatrial node, and this is a small, just a millimeter a node present in the right atrium, in the upper part of the right atrium. This is where the current is generated. This is where the current is made. This is like battery of the pulse maker of the heart. So after current is made, this will spread to the atrium, and there are various conduction pathways in the atrium. This one, for example, 2 goes to the left atrium, and then 3 goes to the AV node, 4 also go to the AV node, and 5 also go to the AV node. These 3, 4, 5 on their way they depolarize atrial chamber. So 2, 3, 4, 5 conduction pathways, they will depolarize atrium. Atrial depolarization will start with right atrial depolarization while right atrium is still being depolarized, because some part of the left atrium may be closer to the SA node than some part of the right atrium. So the left atrial depolarization also starts, but then right atrial depolarization completes, followed by left atrial depolarization completion. Similarly, repolarization process will start. So there could be problem with these conduction pathways, but these do not have any specific names. Okay, then this is the AV node. AV node is situated between atria on this side and ventricle on this side. Now you can imagine heart as 2 electrically separated chambers. One, both atria combined, other, both ventricles combined. The only electrical pathway, the only electrical gateway between two in a normal heart is AV node. That means whatever current is produced by the SA node, it must pass through the AV node to get into the ventricles. It just cannot pass through the normal muscles or through the valves in a normal heart. Okay, so AV node has got a very specialized function to hold the current for some time. Now this is extremely important. Nature has got some great wisdom here. Purpose of holding current in the AV node is to allow atria to depolarize and contract before ventricles depolarize and contract. Why is that needed? Because first atria has to contract before ventricles, because only then ventricular filling will be complete. So once ventricles, first they fill passively and then atrial contraction occurs, and when atrial contraction, then ventricles are filled to their full capacity, and then they contract and produce great systolic volume, stroke volume. But there has to be only a certain level of delay, can't be more than that. If that is the case, that is an abnormality, so there could be problem in the AV node. Then this common bundle called bundle of His. AV is atrioventricular node. Okay. Now this is bundle of His. His was somebody, some scientist who discovered this, who described its anatomy. This is the common bundle which arises from the AV node and passes on the left side of the septum, interventricular septum. This is the location of interventricular septum. It passes on the left side and then it bifurcates into two main fascicles, left bundle branch and the right bundle branch. There may be small fascicle arising from the left bundle to the septum also, but there are two main branches. So right bundle branch, this one, the one on the right, this one the right bundle, which passes on the right side of the septum. It pierces the septum, goes to the right side, passes on the right side of the septum, and then turns around and gives branches, and then it depolarizes right ventricle. Now this one is the left one, and ninth is left bundle. The left one, left bundle, this goes like this one, and this also bifurcates into posterior fascicle, left posterior fascicle, and the left posterior fascicle is actually not one branch, it is actually a bunch of branches collectively called left posterior fascicle, and the other one is left anterior fascicle. This one, the line I'm going with, this one is left anterior fascicle. This used to be called left anterior superior because it comes anteriorly and then it turns around and goes superiorly. It is important to know their anatomy because only then you will be able to understand marked axis deviation which occurs when one of these fascicles are blocked. If this one is blocked, for example, then there would be right axis deviation because current will flow to the, if this one is blocked, there will be right axis deviation, and if this one is blocked, there will be left axis deviation. We will discuss these conditions when we take up these abnormalities. Now, these small fibers are called Purkinje fibers, these small fibers. So the current passes in these Purkinje fibers is extremely fast. Now, note down, first current is held and then it is released into the ventricle, and the system ensures that the current spreads very fast. Now, what is the nature, what is the wisdom? The first I've already explained why there is current is held in the AV node, but why current has to pass very fast? Because nature wants the entire ventricular system, both right and left ventricle, to get depolarized almost instantaneously, because only then it will result in one synchronous contraction of an entire ventricular muscle mass. Only then it will produce an effective contraction. Now imagine depolarization wave spreading slowly and that followed by a contraction wave also spreading slowly. That would of course not generate good stroke volume. I'm not sure if I have explained it well, but this is the best I could do. Okay, so the purpose of fast transmission of current is to let ventricle get depolarized almost instantaneously and to contract as one structure to produce effective stroke volume. Now, various types of abnormalities can occur, and I explained the concept, but I draw a line here. So you can imagine that atria and ventricles are separated by this shield. Current can only pass through the AV node, and this is the gatekeeper of our conduction system. Now, there are various sites where there could be problem. First, I've highlighted AV node. And what are the problems which can occur in the SA node? There may be sinus bradycardia, which is often a physiological state but could be pathological state. By definition, if heart rate is less than 60, that is defined as sinus bradycardia. Then there may be sinus arrhythmia. There could be sinus tachycardia also, but we are actually taking up the bradyarrhythmias first. Then there may be sinus arrhythmia. That means the sinus node has got an inherent rate, but it has some variation. During inspiration, it gets accelerated by less than 10%, and during expiration, the heart rate slows down again within the bracket of 10%. But if it is more than that, it is called sinus arrhythmia. So if there could be some pathology behind it, if there is variation in sinus rate more than 10% in inspiration and expiration, that is formally called sinus arrhythmia. It may not show any serious pathology. It may show some non-lung disease, non-heart disease, but it is to be observed. When you are reporting an ECG, you must report it, this phenomenon, if it is there. Sinus block mean that current was made in the SA node, but it did not come out. So there is a kind of exit block. This condition I will describe in the next video. Sinus arrest mean sinus continue to produce current, but at one order time it just did not produce current. One whole electrical cycle within the SA node was dropped. Now, how to differentiate between the two, I will explain in the next video. Then there is a condition called sick sinus syndrome. There are some people whose SA node does not remain stable. It is prone to develop severe bradycardias and also tachycardias. This is believed to be due to some autonomic disability, and that is beyond the scope of this video. So these are the abnormalities which you can have in SA node disease. Now we proceed further to AV node. Now, in AV node, there are various abnormalities. In fact, AV node is even more important than SA node when we talk about blocks. AV nodal or heart block. AV nodal block or heart block are the same terms. I have used two because the block can be in the AV node or can be in the his burner. It may not be easy to differentiate between the two, but it is possible. And I'll show you when we take up this module how to differentiate between the two. And it may have it has very, very important therapeutic implication. First degree block is when AV node takes longer time to allow current to pass into the ventricle. Normal PR interval is 0.2, but if it is longer than that, it would be called first degree AV block. Every atrial depolarization will pass through the ventricle. So you will have as many QRS complexes as P wave, but every QRS complex is delayed by more than 0.2 seconds. So that is first degree block. Again, there may be some pathology or there may not be some pathology. That is, we will discuss some another module. Then there is second degree block. In the AV node or proximal His bundle, there could be second degree AV block. It could be MOBIS 1, MOBIS 2, high degree block. I think it would not be right if you go into the details because there is a separate video. MOBIS 1, MOBIS 2 or high degree, These are three subtypes of second degree AV block. Basically, in second degree block, every atrial depolarization is not allowed to go into the ventricles. Some are allowed, some are held. And there are various patterns that we will discuss in some other module. Then there is third degree block. Third degree block is also called complete heart block. Complete AV nodal block if the problem is in the AV node, or complete his bundle block if the problem is here, usually ischemic or maybe something else. So complete heart block is a condition where atrial depolarization do not reach ventricles at all, not even single one, no atrial depolarization reaches. Now if we recapitalize, here in the first heart block, every atrial depolarization reaches ventricle after some delay. In second degree heart block, some reach, other they do not reach. But in third, no atrial depolarization reaches ventricles. Then how do ventricles get their depolarization? There has to be an pacemaker in the ventricles. One of these conduction systems will start working as AV node. Again, we will discuss it in detail because this is a very important condition we will discuss in some subsequent video. Let's move further. So problem could be here, here, or even distal. So there may be a right bundle branch block if this bundle is blocked, or there may be left bundle branch block if the problem is here. Or problem could be even distal. This one is anterior fascicle. This lens shows anterior fascicle. Anterior fascicle. If this one is blocked, we call it anterior fascicular block, and if this one is blocked, we call it left posterior fascicular block. These are fascicles. That means branches of left bundle branch, further branches. Okay. Then there may be bifascicular block. Sorry, I can't go back. In bifascicular block, there could be two fascicles blocked. Now, these two fascicles could be left anterior fascicle and left posterior fascicle, or it could mean one of two fascicle could also mean the entire left bundle. Okay. Uh, I think if there is a right bundle branch block and one of these, that is also called bifascicular block. Now there could be another abnormality. So far we have discussed the conduction problem, the blocks, but there could be there's a condition called pre-excitation. The function of AV node is to hold the current for some time, but that will happen only if there is shield, as is the normal case, if the only gateway to the ventricle is AV node. But in some condition, there may be an anomalous pathway. Anomalous is something which is abnormal, should not be there. So there is a small fascicle, small branch of specialized muscle which can pass the current, and it may be situated anywhere. And there are three patterns actually: Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome, Lown-Genong-Levine syndrome, and Mayhem defect. Of three, only Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome deserves a separate video, and I have made actually a separate video on Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome. Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome itself has got three types depending upon where this anomalous pathway is present: in the anterior part, posterior part, middle part, and in some cases this pathway may be within the AV node. So these pathologies will be discussed in some other video. What happens is, before current passes through the AV node, some current already leaks into the ventricle. But since this is not as effective a conduction system as this one is, so some part of the ventricle will be depolarized, but before it can depolarize the rest of the ventricles, the current from the AV node will pass into the ventricle, and the rest of the ventricle will be depolarized from the normal conduction pathway. So ventricles are getting depolarized from two pathways. A small portion will be polarized from the depolarized from the anomalous pathway, but the rest of ventricle will be depolarized from the normal conduction system. So the initial part of QRS complex is from the abnormal, and the later part of the QRS complex is from the normal conduction system. So this we will also discuss in a separate module. So this was Professor Aziz-ur-Rehman from Medurstand. Thank you very much for joining, and I really look forward to see you in my next video. Thank you.